Hey folks, so OpenAI just released its Deep Research Agent, which is an agent that uses reasoning to synthesize large amounts of online information and complete multi-step research tasks for you. And to illustrate this, they have a couple of examples, and one of them is something they call a needle in a haystack problem. And the idea is that a user sort of describes a TV show that they watched a long time ago. They sort of mentioned that I forgot the name, but I do remember what happened in one of the episodes. And they describe a couple of scenes, and the task is please browse the web deeply to find the TV show episode where this happened exactly. And in order to accomplish something like this, you need a system with a bit of autonomy, and it's probably come up with a plan. It has access to tools like using a search engine or web browser, and it can sort of coordinate all of these, recover from errors to solve the task. How do we build something like this with AutoGen? Let's take a look. Hi, so now we are in a VS Code IDE, and what we're looking at is a single file called app.py. And it has about 90 lines of code, and essentially it contains everything you probably need to implement a deep research agent end to end. And so let's sort of walk through the code and what we sort of accomplish here. The first thing we want to do is install the package, the AutoGen package. And I always recommend we begin with a virtual environment. And so here we sort of recommend using Conda. Next, install the right package, pip install -u, AutoGen Agent Chat, and AutoGen extensions. Here we're going to use the OpenAI client, OpenAI models. And the other thing I should note here is that we need to set up a few keys. Here we're going to use a Google search tool. So when our agents need to perform a web search, we're going to make them use a Google search API. And to do that, we need to set up a couple of environment variables. Of course, none of this will work if you don't set that up. I'd like to note that you don't have to use the Google search tool directly. You could use Bing search, you could use DuckDuckGo or any other search provider. You just need to set up that tool. And I'll recommend you sort of take a look at what that looks like in the sample, in the other Google search.py files. We'll also use another tool, which is mainly just using the request library to sort of click into links and sort of return the content of links as markdown that the agents can process. Okay, so we'll begin with just basic imports, import our assistant agent, a few other housekeeping things. Here we'll import the tools we're going to use. And the first thing we do is define a model client. Here we're just saying we're going to use GPT-4o models. You'll notice we aren't using any of the fancy O1 models. Next, we define our first agent, which is a research assistant. And the core idea here is that we sort of set its behavior using the system message. We tell it that you're a research assistant focused on finding accurate information. We tell it that it can use the Google search tool. And we sort of prompt it to respond to feedback that it receives from other agents as the task progresses. You'll notice here that we have two tools that we assign to it, and as this agent sort of responds, it can intelligently use these tools driven by the underlying OpenAI model. The next agent we have here is a Verifier agent, and the core idea here is that as the task progresses, we want something that can sort of in some way externally evaluate task progress and the quality of the overall direction that the task is taking. So for example, in the system message, we will sort of prompt it to provide feedback to the research agent, things like drill down where needed if the answer is likely in the link in return search results. Suggest that the assistant agent sort of clicks those links. And then we sort of prompt it to, in cases where it feels like the task is not complete, it should respond with continue research. And when the task is complete, it should respond with approved. And then the final bit is we have a summary agent. And the goal here is just to take everything that has happened so far and sort of return it in a human readable, nicely structured format. And then finally, we sort of tell it to respond with terminate. And this is like a signal that we use to sort of end the entire conversation. And so here we set up termination conditions. Here we say that the entire run should end if we have a maximum of 30 messages exchanged, or any of the agents respond with the word terminate. And then finally, we define this thing called a selector group chat. And essentially, think of the selector group chat as an implementation of the group chat pattern I mentioned earlier. You have a bunch of agents, a researcher agent, a verifier, and a summary agent. And at each point, what this group chat does is that it sort of determines, given all of the state of the conversation so far, which of these agents is likely to take the next step that leads to the task making progress. And the behavior of the selector group chat is sort of defined in a selector prompt. And so here it says things like you're coordinating a research team. It says things like it lists out what each of these team agents do, what each of the agents sort of does. We also have some information around like what the verifier should do. And we also like have some instruction that says, only select the summary agent if the task is complete and it's time to generate a final report. And so we can go ahead and sort of take the exact same task we saw in the OpenAI agent, the OpenAI deep research agent, and sort of see how this little setup does. So once we run this, we see that the user's request is shown. And next we see that the research assistant has made a function call. So here we're going to use the Google search tool, and essentially there is a search query, and we return the top 5 results, and all of that is added to the conversation. Next, we see that the verifier sort of has an assessment of the state of the task. It says the search did not effectively locate the TV show. Okay. More search, more requests are being made. And underneath, as the deep research tool sort of explores response to users' questions, underneath this is very similar to what it probably accomplishes. And so more searches are being done, more responses are being returned. So here it looks like it's zeroing in on a wiki called Counterpart Stars Wiki. More searches are being done to sort of verify, double check. So at some point, it looks like the verifier is now happy after sort of looking through a bunch of Reddit and a bunch of other wikis. So it's sort of come up with, after extensive research, I think episode 4 is probably the right thing. And then it finally responds with approved. And I think at this point, the selector group chat should then delegate all of these to the summary agent, which at the end of all of this will sort of return with a formatted response. This is terminate, and that's exactly what happens. And so it says that we have a final report. The episode you're recollecting may potentially be from the series counterpart, season 4, titled Both Sides Now. This episode features notable poker scene and all of that. All very, very interesting. And the interesting thing is, if you go back and look at what deep research sort of responded with, all very similar. It says all 3 described events occur in Stars Counterpart season 4, and it sort of describes all of these very, very similar to what the system we just implemented sort of looks like. So at this point, I'll stop. If you're interested in the code, I think you should be able to find that under the multi-agent book website. If you go to multi-agent code samples and sort of go to deep research agents, then you will be able to sort of take a look at all of the code I just sort of talked about, and you should be able to view some of the sample results that we just looked through. So I'd encourage you to take a look. And And if you're interested in sort of understanding the foundations of multi-agent systems, the multi-agent book website is a good resource to use. And there's an upcoming book. Consider pre-ordering it if it's something that's interesting to you. Thanks.